it's great that you're back on the road. How? I mean, when I saw this, I was surprised because all of a sudden the Boomtown Rats have reformed.
They offered us a fortune. What let's get to let's cut to the chase here. So it was Gary, the guitar player, got approached by a guy called John Giddings, who puts on the Isle of Wight Rock Festival. And the Isle of Wight is a sort of a classic. It goes along with Glastonbury. And I was a kid when I went to, I think, Isle of Wight 1 or 2. There was only 2 and then it stopped. It was closed down. There were 600,000 people there. I saw The Who, The Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Leonard Cohen.
All in one night?
One night.
Oh, my God.
And so, this was a big thing in my head. And I suppose there's a few classic festivals. I played Glastonbury. I'd done Live Aid. I wasn't around for Woodstock, so I needed to knock off the Isle of Wight. And the other thing, and being serious now, is that I'm fine money-wise and thing, but some of the others aren't.
Oh, good on you.
And I thought,
that's
okay.
Great.
And so I said I'd give it a shot because I'm not into nostalgia. And this is honest to God truth. I tell you otherwise. When I started playing those songs, when I started singing the words, reading them again and singing them, I may as well have written them yesterday because we came out of certain economic conditions in Ireland, i.e. rubbish. None of us could get jobs. We were kids. So we started this band, and by definition, I started writing and singing about what was around me. One of the songs I'd written when I was a slaughterhouse man, and that was our first number one. I was a heavy machine driver. I wrote Looking After Number One on that, our first hit. And we ended 10 years later, which is a good lifetime for a band to do their thing. And the last gig we ever did was a thing called Self-Aid in Ireland, which was for the unemployed of Ireland. So we ended in the same conditions. And to come back now, and I have to tell everyone listening that the economic conditions in Ireland are awful. And
I'll tell you what, a lot of Irish people are turning up here at the moment.
It's to your advantage to go home and see the queues of kids leaving for Canada, Australia is heartbreaking. Every country, what's the point of a country if you can't give a future to your children? And so to sing those songs and to suddenly think, dude, I could have written these yesterday. Nothing's changed. In fact, that song you just played got us banned in Ireland. Here's a nice, pleasant morning jock song.
A famous Irishman who was leading this country used that particular term once too.
Who, Paul Keating?
Yeah.
Well, Paul used several terms.
He also put his hand on the Queen's bottom, as you know, and that we never heard the end of that.
Come on, what a babe.
Are you allowed to because you're a sir?
And much more. It's barely one of the privileges, but
So, do you have much? The thing I've always loved about being with you is talking music. The fact that you are a great musicologist. You were a journalist, in fact, before you got into the Boomtown Rats, weren't you?
I worked at an underground newspaper in Canada, which was like Canada's Rolling Stone. And it was a time, if you remember Rolling Stone magazine, it was a time when Rolling Stone was the local San Francisco underground paper. And that was the first kind of proper job I got. I was on my way to the Arctic Circle to dig gold because I could drive heavy equipment, and the one that they needed you to do was a Terex T24.
If you ever run out of money, you could do that from the north of our state sometime.
I'd do it. I loved that job. I'm serious about it. I thought the money was fantastic. I thought, is this what I'm going to do with my life? And then I sort of thought, well, if it is, you're out there on your own. You're usually with a crew who hang together like a gang, and it was rough living. At the weekends, they'd do the bars, and they'd always get into fights, which I was scared of because they were big men. And but you had to do it. You were one of the boys. And so going up to the Arctic Circle, and I had to collect my illegal immigration papers because I pitched up in Canada, just on spec. And so for those of you who are illegals listening, what you do is you keep writing letters to yourself, and after a month they give you a national insurance thing. So that's the way to do it. And while I was waiting, I went down to the underground news paper, and I said, look, I'm a visiting journalist. Obviously, because I'm on holidays, I don't have any work with me. I think it was 19 or 20. I said, but send me out to cover local bands, and if you don't like it, don't publish it. So they sent me out to talk to some local kid who, was making a name for himself. He was 16 at the time or something. And I went and interviewed this kid who was quite good on guitar and had a skin problem. So I'd like to apologise now for visiting Bryan Adams upon the planet, And,
oh, no.